This is an SM Media production. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Joined as always by Calum McClurkin. Calum, how are we?
Yeah, fine. Just 3 weeks left, so excitement starting to build.
I know it's a very, very busy 3 weeks ahead for us, but we'll touch on something really quickly. Obviously, we usually record this on a Wednesday, but we're recording it on a Thursday this week just because of obviously the news that came through yesterday about the amateur situation. So we'll run into that straight away. We've heard that the amateurs aren't going to be able to make the festival. What's your immediate thoughts on that, Calum?
Yeah, it's disappointing, isn't it? It's disappointing for them. The Hunters Chase is particularly going to miss out. It's essentially their Gold Cup, isn't it?
Yeah.
Those are the rules that are in place, and they won't be changing for Cheltenham. Boris Johnson set out March 29 as a limit really for amateur sport to kind of come back. And even though I think a lot of people will argue that the likes of Jamie Codd, Patrick Mullins, Derek O'Connor, they're really amateurs in name, to be honest.
Yeah.
In the horse racing sphere, that the blanket rule doesn't cover that, and it's not going to be an exemption.
Yeah, we'll touch on Patrick Mullins. Patrick Mullins has obviously got a few good rides scheduled. There was obviously going to be on Kilcroot, Ballaway, Sharjah, Mellon potentially. There is talk he is planning to go professional. Do you think that would happen? And what would be the thing what would kind of happen there if he did go professional?
I can understand his thinking. There's probably two reasons why he's maybe get more of a reason to go than the other amateurs. One is that he will be getting rides in races like the Champion Hurdle in the Ryanair, with Mellon probably at least. He's not going to just be an amateur that's going to ride in amateur races. He's going to get a lot of rides, probably the vast majority of the handicaps, and probably maybe half of the Grade 1s here. So there's no other amateur that's going to get that kind of opportunity, and he's with a stable that have, let's be honest, the majority of the favourites as well.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think Patrick Mullins will be involved in the yard. Regardless, he will be coming over.
Yeah.
So I mean, like the likes of Jamie Codd, who's in Mitty, he'll stay at home. Derek O'Connor as well. Maybe they're not as involved as Patrick Mullins is, who's the trainer's son and probably the heir to the throne. Down the line at some point.
See, obviously, go for Patrick as well. What would that mean for his Irish? I think there's something as well that he can't ride Irish bumpers if he goes pro. Is that right?
Yeah, that's amateur only as well. So, and the point-to-point scene is amateur. And you source a lot of your horses from the point-to-point scene as well. So I mean, he's quite useful in that element of things. So yeah, it's not a hardship to get your professional license if you're an amateur, but it does take a little bit of time to go back from professional to amateur. If you want, once you've made that leap, it tends to stay that way more often than not. Yeah,
definitely. It's going to be a sad miss not having the amateurs there, but we'll move on to a couple of fan questions. The first one we've got here: what is the worst value favourite for the festival that you feel just can't win?
Interesting question. A lot of the favourites didn't win last year, did they? Odds on,
yeah.
But a lot of them won in Dublin racing festival, so it might be more favourite friendly this year. The one I'm keen to take on though is Appreciate It in the Supreme. To my eye, he just looks slow to me. For a 2 mile Supreme favourite, he looks slow, and I don't think he's progressing over this sphere at this trip over hurdles as much as maybe someone behind. I understand that he's well clear. I think better grounds, he could be done for speed by something else, a bit like he was in the Champion Bumper, where he was similarly fancied at 74. So I'd be looking to take him on. I think Ganapathy and Blue Lord have chances against him on better ground. They're stable mates, maybe Soaring Glory. Métis seems to be prematurely dismissed. Ballyadam did get close at the Dublin Racing Festival. I thought he showed the best turn of foot he made up 3 lengths and appreciated it quite quickly before making a mistake at the last. He might get a little bit closer again. I think there's threats to him, particularly in spring ground.
I would go for Ballaway in the Hunter's Chase, just because, not because I don't like the horse, I just feel his jumping might get caught out in a test like that, like it did last year. I think there's a few decent horses now in behind that could give him a threat, and he potentially might not have Patrick on board, and I think Patrick has a really good relationship with the horse. So that would be a slight worry to me, but I would go for Billaway. Second question, what was your best ever festival from a punting perspective? Start with you.
2016 was pretty memorable. Altior won the Supreme, then Duvan won. I had the forecast with Sizing John, Annie Power, several Any Currency won the cross country, Vroom Vroom Mag won the Mares Hurdle, Don Cossack won the Gold Cup, Thistle Crack won the World Hurdle, Vautour. There was lots of them came in. Solar Impulse won the last race for me as well, 28-1. So it was bookended the festival perfectly. So it just seemed to be one of those years where everything went right. Yeah,
I'll go for 2016 as well. I was very lucky to be there on the first day, and Min was my main bet. Obviously didn't win, but I recovered with a quite good treble with Duvan, Annie Pill and Vroom Vroom Mag. Thursday was a big day for that year because my nap of the festival was Black Hercules in the JLT and won really well, and followed that up with Thistle Crack, Vautour and Limini. So it was a really good festival. So I would go for 2016 as well. And that was our questions. We'll move on to the recap. We'll take a look at the horses that have been catching our eye over the past week. We'll start off on Wednesday at Wetherby, where we saw Chantry House stake a claim for the Marsh. He is now 20-1. I thought he jumped really well, made a bit of a mistake at the last. He's entered. It looks as if he's going to go for the Marsh, doesn't he?
Looks to be. Don't think he's in the plate. Handicap marker 151. I think maybe a bit high, and Nicky Henderson reckons that the hustle and bustle of a handicap's not for him, which I understand because he's not the biggest horse, but he's very neat, tidy, professional. He looked like he'd strengthened at Wetherby. He looked a little bit clever at his obstacles. I don't know, he get in tight the last, but he kind of popped it in a smart way, and therefore he wasn't really hustled or harried by Coconut Splash at all. He was quite comfortably held. He was just a bit better than everything else in that race, and I think he is a graded operator. 16-1 each way for a Marsh. When he was third in a really red hot Supreme, very lowly rated, so went into that race 140. Didn't have a lot of experience. He's had a few runs now over fences. He seems to be gradually getting better at them. Given his profile, I think he might be emerging as the biggest threat to Envoy Allen. Don't think he'll beat him at all, but each way at 16-1 seems a decent price. A race that's probably going to put up fairly significantly in behind them. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. We'll move on to Saturday in Ascot, where we saw Remastered win the Reynoldstown Novices Chase. Stayed on really well. He's into 16s for the National Hunt Chase and 20 for the Brown Advisory. It looks to be an out-and-out stayer, doesn't he? So do you think the National Hunt Chase could be the option for him?
I think so. I think probably that Monkfish would be a bit too good for him in the Brown Advisory Novices Chase for sure. He was good. He galloped straight to the line. The day machine came to him, he kept going, never looked like getting past. He was rated 138 going into it, so it's probably not the strongest Reynoldstown in the world of recent years. Those Native River cars you associate with staying, don't you? So I think National Hunt Chase is probably the place to go with him, but he has entered in likes of the Ultim as well. So he is certainly one to watch in various entries.
Definitely. We'll move on to the Grade 1, where Dazzle Drasher won the Ascot Chase. Very, very good for Jeremy Scott and Matt Griffiths. When it comes to Grade 1s, I know it was a really good performance, but I wouldn't say this was the best Grade 1 we've ever seen.
No, not for the grades. Definitely not. And with Surname bottoming out like he did, so was very disappointing. But Dazzle Drasher, he's 4 from 4 at Ascot now, and he keeps getting it done, and he's just gradually steady improver. He was always holding Master Tommy Tucker, when the runner-up came to him. He kept pulling out more, suggests he wasn't doing much in front. He knows how to win for sure. It's a mooted possibility the Ryanair. I'd probably leave him for entry. Go for a Betway Bowl or something like that. I'd imagine that would be up his street. It's a good performance from the winner. Surname though was probably the big takeaway of it.
Do we think he's done?
Paul Nicholls said that he had a respiratory issue after it. The race with Altior, I think, he's won 1 from 5 since, and the other 4 haven't just been beaten. They've been blowouts, haven't they? He's going to be really hard for Paul Nicholls to get back. And he's a brilliant trainer, but he's got his work cut out to get this guy back for sure at the moment. It's going to be some ask. Yeah, definitely. Haydock, where I tipped up a horse last week called Alaphilippe. I thought it was really, really impressive that on Saturday. 20-1 now for the Bartlett. Run really well. He's had 5 runs, so he could be potentially kind of in the mix for the Bartlett. What did you think of Alaphilippe? It was good, yeah. Given a back young buck in the day, he fell upsides 3 out. Would they have won? It's too far out of Haydock to know that. I think it's the long straight, and then the run-in's one of the longest in Britain, and who knows. Given the way Alaphilippe finished, he probably won because young buck was up there earlier than he was. The race in behind fell apart because those were the 2 that were well clear, to be honest. He has a chance at a Bartlett because the nature of that race tends to be wide open. Could go to anyone. Soft grounders look pretty important to him though, and I think he'd probably need a fair bit of cut in the ground to feature. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he does have a chance, but I think he would prefer soft ground. We'll stay at Haydock. Bob and Co won the Hunter's Chase 6-1 now. Very, very impressed I was, to be honest. I thought he's got a really good engine. Sean Bone obviously will keep the ride for the Hunter's Chase now. Would you say he's the best of the British? Definitely at the moment, yeah, for sure. He jumped okay. Thought he wasn't fluent at the last couple. I don't think got in particularly tight. He's a bit of an enigma, this horse. He's definitely got his own way of doing things. I'd personally had a thing about him in the head in Warwick. I was waiting for quite a bit of dough, and I took him on to beat Manila Rocco, and David Maxwell couldn't steer the horse. He pulled like a train, and his legs went numb quite quickly. A bit of a frightening sight, uncontrollable, and he did well to manage to finally pull him up. I've probably got something against him ever since that, though. He has improved. He did come to Paul Nicholls' yard with a kind of a high reputation from France. He was quite a highly rated recruit to this Hunter's Chase in SCEAU. He was quite highly touted though last year, and he bypassed Cheltenham, and the connections preferred Shantou Flyer instead. I've got doubts about the track for him, and I've got doubts about spring ground for him, because I think soft ground will be really important. And if he's lit up and his jump's put to the test and decent ground, I'd have more worries about him jumping round Cheltenham than Billoway. He does have at least course experience and will improve for better ground, rather than probably not in the case of Bob and Co. Yeah, match that. When Carton, we saw Goshen come back to form. Great performance, now 10-3 for the champion hurdle. Do you think the hype's valid, and how impressed were you? I was impressed, but I think it has been overhyped slightly. He was 10-3 to win. He was 10-3 to win that race at Wincanton, where everything was in his favour, and he did so, and no rival really impressed. And now he's 10-3 to win a champion hurdle 3 weeks later. It's a bit of a leap, in my opinion. But he brings an absolute fascinating angle to a race that seems to get better and better each week to look at. He is a bit of a monster. He is savage. I mean, he hit the line quite impressively at Wincanton, and he did take a lead for a bit, and he did settle, and he looked a bit more professional. and if he can harness that around the old track, then he does have a chance. But his chance seems to be hinging on absolutely destroying them, or kind of destroying himself and pulling up. And that seems to be the only two results that you get out of Goshen.
Right, all three kind of market leaders at the same price just now for the champion hurdle, like Honeysuckle, Goshen, and Epitone. Who are you siding with out of those three, and why?
Well, out of those three, and because it's a few weeks ago, I'd probably side with Honeysuckle at the prices. She's unbeaten in 10. She's won Grade 1s. I mean, Goshen simply hasn't. You know, whatever way you cut that, and Epitone, she does have a question to answer from last time beating out Silver Streak.
Mm-hmm.
So I would side with the one that's side with the mare that's unbeaten, and we know that it'll go well on the day. Probably she's the most solid option. She'll definitely run a race. Yeah,
I'd agree with that. Sunday, Newbury, Secret Investor won the Denman Chase, beating Clan de Zobo. What was your thoughts on that?
Delighted to see Secret Investor win. Backed at 14-1. His run by Native River last year in this by 2.5 lengths wasn't given enough credit in the market, I don't think, and he'd probably been trained for this day since then, to be honest. But a decent ground round Newbury from the front. Bryony Frost on board, who seems to judge his rides really well, did it again, repeated the trick she did in Frodon, the King George. Clan de Obo probably should have got by though. He was travelling quite well, and he tends not to finish out his races that impressively.
Mm-hmm.
But I think better ground than given £6 was maybe anchored him up, just anchored him a little bit. Lost in translation.
It's hard to see him coming back.
He disappointed again. He travelled quite well to a point. I know owners and connections are not ones to give up. I'd just like to see them try something differently. He's not going to win a Gold Cup. It's too much. It's going to be too much of a stamina test. I think they should have left him in the Ryanair and run him there. Just have a go at that. Change it up a little bit. A wee drop in trip would have suited him. His racing style of creeping into races would quite suit in a Ryanair, where a lot of the main protagonists in that race will probably race quite forward. So yeah, I would like them supplemented for that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that could be potentially what he's needing. So Royal won the Game Spirit Chase, 20-1 for the Champion Chase. Do you think he could have an each way chance?
He could if it cuts up like last year's did, and it's quite quick ground. I just think the hill always tends to catch him out at Cheltenham, doesn't it? He's all speed, and he's not getting any younger at the moment. So I think that's probably a fair reflection of his price.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Let's get to the second horse in the race, Champ. Were you encouraged?
Oh yeah, you had to be. Yeah, he jumped far better than he did all last season. From the front, he did look. He looked a little bit stronger. He settled better, and he jumped far more fluently. And he wasn't far away from holding on either. He is seriously talented, but the preparation still asks a bit of a question. And you've got to take that 2 mile form at Grade 2 level as gospel, really, to say that he's a Gold Cup player. I'm not so sure it was that strong.
I was encouraged. I thought it was really good, but again, there was a couple of fences I didn't think he caught brilliant. But again, he's got the stamina. If he jumped, he'd either look at it as it was over 2 miles. He jumped. He looks quick enough to go 2 miles. So that's the thing, doesn't he? It does look as if he's got a bit of speed. No, but again, at 6-1, you would need. I just would worry that his jumping would get caught out at some point in the race. But I'm a huge fan of the horse. We'll move to the Betfair Hurdle, where Soaring Glory won the Betfair Hurdle really, really impressively. 1-1-3-3. Very, very good winner. 12-1 for the Supreme. What was your thoughts on Soaring Glory?
It was a good performance. He was obviously well handicapped, wasn't he? I don't like the Betfair Hurdle as a preparation for a Supreme though, and mainly because the Betfair Hurdle is a good race in its own right, and it's a long-term target in its own right.
Yeah.
And Soaring Glory was mapped out for this for quite some way by John Joe O'Neill, and I think turning that round to compete in a Supreme is a little bit difficult. On good ground though, I think he'd have a chance because he does display a good 2 miles turn of foot. 133, yeah, he's probably very much well in. Probably go up to a mid 140s mark when the new ratings come out. But yeah, he'd have an each way chance. It's all about whether they can sort that turnaround in time and have a go for it. It's quick enough.
What price do you think Dusat would have been? Obviously, Dusat beat Soaring Glory. What price do you think Dusat would have been for the Supreme? No.
I think with the improvement I anticipated, I think he'd be second favourite comfortably, and I think Fernie Hollow would be favourite, and therefore appreciate it. We'll run in the Ballymore. If that was the case, again, it's another reason why I want to take on Appreciate It. But yes, the horses that I want to take him on with are unfortunately on the sidelines.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Navan and Sunday with Boyne Hurdle. Beacon Edge beat Fury Road in a really, really good race. They're both 20-1 for the Stairs Hurdle. What was obviously you've tipped up Fury Road for the Stairs Hurdle. What was your thoughts on the finish?
Yeah, I had to be a bit disappointed. He dictated the race, but he dictated it a little bit too slowly. The time was quite slow, and I think Beacon Edge came in and mugged him a little bit for speed. But the way he won the last, I was expecting a little bit more, and I was expecting him to see it out at least. He does have that kind of a slight high head carriage that suggests that a big battle might not be for him. But Gordon Elliott was quite quick. Thought he was going to dismiss the Stairs Hurdle for him, stay for Fairy House. Then the owners chimed in and thought, I think this horse is good enough to compete in the Stairs Hurdle, and he might go there now. So I do think he does hold an each way chance at 20-1 because he's young and unexposed, and I think a bit of cover will help. And he obviously handles the track, and the Albert Bartlett form last year is really strong. As for the winner, he's probably going to be off to Aintree, I imagine, and I doubt that he's probably going to be good enough to win that, to be honest.
A horse in behind was Tiger Roll. What do you think about that? What do you think about his performance, and what do you think about him going into Cheltenham?
You'd have to have doubts. He raced enthusiastically enough till around the bend. They were all involved because they went quite a dawdle in that race. The distance he's been beaten was massive, bigger than you'd thought coming around the bend. Trainer obviously blamed the deep going. He might come back, but you just have to wonder if he's seen out his races these days now. If he's had won too many battles in the trenches, and he's might have had enough. 9-1 for a cross country, when there's doubts about the favourite, isn't entirely unreasonable. You'd expect he will come forward from it because he looked unfit in the paddock. To be honest, he looked massive. He's always described as this little rat of a thing. Well, he wasn't a rat in the weekend there because he looked quite big. Yeah, I think you've got to have a massive leap of faith to be siding with him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's very, very difficult now. I'd love to see him go for another Grand National and do what he's done the past 2 years. But again, you've not been filling you with much confidence. But here's hoping he can get back to something kind of form. And that was our recap for the week. We'll now take a look at what's coming up this week, and this would probably be our last week for proper Cheltenham clues. Would you agree with that?
Probably, yeah. I think it's a little bit too tight now after this week. It's all systems go to Cheltenham.
And we'll touch on the 3 big races at Kempton on Saturday. We'll start off with the Pendil Novices Chase, where we have Tamarok Dumathan for Paul Nichols at 5-4 and Gallo 7-2. What do you fancy for that race?
I think GA Law is a little bit overpriced now that Hitman's been taken out. Earlier form this season, I think he's got a chance. I think he's underestimating the market because he had a really bad run the last time. If he's back to form, I think he could maybe turn over the 5-4 favourite in that race.
Yeah, I'm going for Gallo as well. I think he's probably a good piece of form. Interesting that Hitman's been taken out. Do we imagine that he's going to go straight to Cheltenham? Like, do you think that's the plan with him? Because obviously, I wouldn't like the thought of getting into Cheltenham off the back of a fall.
No, it's not ideal. I'm not sure about what Paul Nicholls' plan is for this horse. I mean, it was kind of nailed down as a kind of flat track entry horse for a long time, and then there seems to be a little bit of interest in him. He seems to be going 2.5 miles. It seems to be. He might probably go Marsh instead of Arthur.
Yeah.
If he goes at all, personally, I would stick to the original plan. I would wait for entry, to be honest with him.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Adonis Juvenile Hurdle, where Solo was very impressive in this last year, and we have Tritonic for Alan King as the 11-10 favourite. Do you fancy Tritonic this week?
I do expect him to win, and expect him to really emerge as kind of the best of the British contenders for this race. Monmoral was quite impressive when he beat Nassalam last weekend. So he's not going to go kind of bust the Nassalam Adagio form line bubble a little bit from Chepstow.
Yeah.
So I think the Brits will be looking for Tritonic to kind of produce something fairly decent and enhance his triumph claims.
Yeah, I fancy Tritonic as well. There's just a horse at 6-1 that's catching my eye for Paul Nicholls, an unraced horse called Passadoble. It's got really good form in France, I believe, and Ireland for Jim Bolger. So he could be very, very interesting. I'd love to see if there's a gamble on him, if potentially what the thoughts are with him. I just want to keep an eye on. We'll move to the Dovecote Novices Hurdle, where we have Athol Street for Paul Nicholls at 5-2 favourite and Calico at 3-1. Cape Gentleman is an entry as well. What do you fancy for this race?
Quite like Calico.
I like Calico.
I think he could possibly turn over Athol Street, although he's decent form as well. It's a good little race. I'd be quite surprised if it ever came to a pointer for the Novice Hurdle in 3 weeks' time. Yeah,
I quite like Calico as well. I think he's got a really good piece of form at Ludlow. He could potentially be the one to watch for this week. Is there any other horses or any other races this week to keep an eye on, do you think?
It's a couple of decent races at Fairyhouse, you'd think. A few in Ireland, novice hurdles, juvenile hurdles, Mears novices as well. I think they're the ones that you're really kind of looking for now for Cheltenham. I think, all the handicap entries and the weights will be out next week. I think that's pretty much set in stone now. So you're looking at kind of late blooming juveniles or late blooming novices now to put their hat in the ring to go for Cheltenham.
Yeah, definitely. And that was our look at what's coming up this week. We'll move on to our Ante Post Picks, and we'll see a few of them coming up just now. Obviously, the entries for the handicaps are out, and we'll be doing a special handicaps preview next week. We'll be looking through hopefully all the weights will be out, and we'll be able to dissect every handicap and try and point us in the right direction. Champagne Platinum is one of your picks for the festival for the Coral Cup. He finished second in a Pertemps qualifier, and he's now 9-1 for that. Are you gutted that he's not going? He's now going the Pertemps route?
Yeah, disappointed. They'll obviously have a cover bet because I would be kicking myself to Timbuktu if I didn't. I still have doubts about him stamina wise, but the way he finished off at Haydock was quite good. Off a top weight, he was finishing off better than anything else. He's just well handicapped. He's been well handicapped from the outset. I thought a Coral Cup would be a perfect scenario. Nicky Henderson just kept on hardening the line. No, it's going to be Per Tom all the way. I do think if Tower Bridge was still fit, JP McManus probably had a ready-made, well-handicapped horse for that race, and perhaps Champagne Platinum would have been going Coral Cup route. But that's how it's panned out, and it's a classic case of right horse, wrong race.
Couple of horses I want to touch on as well with you that you've tipped up for on the show. Column of Fire, Pertemps. I think, did you tip him up for the Pertemps? Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think's happening there? Obviously, I don't think has he entered for anything at the festival.
he's getting entry in the Coral Cup.
Brilliant. Do you want to switch him about?
I'm afraid it doesn't work like that, but I wouldn't be switching. I wouldn't be switching around with this fella, because I think I struggled to get him back from last year. I just don't think he's been quite right. He wasn't very fit last time out. He was entered in the Perton qualifier for the Punchestown card that was scrapped because due to waterlogging, but he was quickly taken out of that in the final declaration stage. I think they're fighting a losing battle to get him over Cheltenham in time, but I think Grand Ra seems to be Colin Elliott's main Coral Cup horse now, and if you're on him, you'd be quite happy, I think.
Yeah. Another one, Happy Go Lucky, who you've tipped up for the National Hunt Chase. He looks as if he's been smashed in for the Ultima. Do you think that's where he's going to go?
Again, fortunately, I've got a bit of cover on that. He could. It all depends on what the weights are kind of. Is he going to well handicap? What from Ireland's going to come over? I think he'd have a chance in the National Hunt Chase on decent ground. I think his track form at Cheltenham would really suit, but he did win over C&D over the Ultima trip last time out, and I think they've kept him fresh, trying to look for decent ground. I think he's a very smart novice. I think he's more of a stayer, obviously, but he's very Imperial Aura mould in the way he goes about things. But yeah, I have fortunately got a sale on him for the Ultima non-runner no bet as well. I get 16s, and it's important. It's important to try and see your Ante Post book and be versatile and cover it off when you can. You know, you've put in a lot of work to try and get the right horses at the right prices, and when you find another bit of research that might not go here, if you do really like the horse, you know, I would recommend, you know, having a cover bet on another race, because you might go there and then the price goes and you sit in joint favourite and you're going, you really do get yourself at times.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of my horses that I just need to mention that don't look as if they're going in the race. I've picked him in. Capadano, who was very disappointing a couple of weeks ago. I've picked him for the county hurdle, but he does still have an entry for the Martin Pipe. So I would say that's potentially not where I would say there's probably no chance. I don't think he'll go at the festival, but I did think he was potentially in the Sant Ram outfit last year. She wears it well, is definitely not entered, so she's not going to the Mayor's Novice. And I think Riviere de Tel has been lined for the Boodles, I believe. So that could potentially be another softener for me. We've got 2 Ante Post picks each. Do you mind if I start this week?
Yeah.
Brilliant. First pick, I don't think Gordon Elliott watches the show, but if he does watch the show, then please listen to what I'm saying here, because please do not run Iscaria 10 in the National Hunt Chase. Run him in the Ultimate 10-1, because that is my first Ante Post pick of the week. I'm just gambling. The fact that I'm hoping that if Gordon Elliott realises he's got the winner in Galvin for the National Hunt Chase and he can go and win another race at the festival with a really good novice. Iscaria 10 I think is perfect. I think if he didn't finish second in that race to Eclat de Vere a couple of weeks ago, he would be hacking up in a Kim Muir, because he wouldn't have got anything higher than 145. I think he's probably he's 147 just now. The UK handicapper could give him maybe between 5 and 7, do we think? Is that?
At least 5, I would say.
Yeah, so if he's maybe 152, maybe between 152 and 154, could still be very well handicapped for an Ultima. I think it's worth Gordon, it's worth running him in the Ultima. Give him, he'll hack up. I think this horse in future could be a graded chaser. I really, really like this horse.
Could be, yeah. I think it's a genuine 50-50 decision.
I know.
With him.
I'm just hoping he realises that Galvin's going to win the National Hunt Chase, and he's got another novice chaser that can go and win another race.
Yeah, it could be. He's a horse that's kind of slipped my radar a little bit. But the McNeil colours will be interesting to see who would ride him in the National Hunt Chase.
Probably Hesse. Probably National. Adrian Heskin, the man.
Could be. I don't know, because it's an Irish recruit. I'm trying to remember who rode him last time. It's a horse that kind of always goes under my radar for some reason every time. But yeah, he'd have a chance. Definitely in either.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it goes Ultima. What is your first Ante Post pick this week?
In the Mayor's Novices hurdle, Glens of Antrim, 20-1 each way. I've already got Casa Vetera in this, but she's drifting out markedly. But I wouldn't rule her out, and it says a lot about the quality of the race at the moment. I think the mares taking on the mares form isn't very good at all at the moment. Galwa, Royal Cala, Rosie's Hollow. I think they're fairly vulnerable, and I think Glen St Antrum's, people are starting to cotton on now, but her form's been totally forgotten about. She was beaten by Mr. Incredible, 4.5 lengths of Henry de Bromheads, but that horse looks seriously talented. I think definitely got a future, and she was beaten off probably about the same margin by Statler, who's favourite for the Albert Bartlett.
Yeah,
and that form was working out a lot better. On pedigree, a little drop down trip would seem ideal, because a lot of these mares novices don't really finish off their races too well. As we saw last year, the Concertista, I think, was the only one that really powered to the line. The other one were kind of floored in behind. It could be a more of a Eggleton de Soy, throw a blanket over them kind of year though. Willie Mullins is 5 from 5 as well, and did give a positive mention in the stable tour that she does have the pedigree for this race. And I think, although Galwa might just be their number one, I think Glen St Antrim has to be respected, and on a form line that looks a little bit better than your average mares novices form at the top of the market.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's a very good pick. I think as that type of race this year, where it's so unpredictable that something outside the top of the market could sweep in. And if you're going with the mares novices hurdle, you're going with Willie Mullins, aren't you?
Yeah, you should do. Yeah, it's recommended.
Brilliant. I'm going for my second pick, a horse in the Paddy Power Plate, again trained by Gordon Elliott. I'm going for Far Class. Now, he does have an entry in the Ultima as well, and I think he's top of the market for that. But Paddy Power Plate, I think the shorter trip might just help him. He was 4th in a 2 mile 5 handicap chase at the Dublin Racing Festival. I think just maybe a furlong less might just bring out the best in this horse. Obviously, he's got really good course form, winning the Triumph Hurdle a couple of years ago. She is very, very good. I think she'll be very well handicapped. I think she's mid 150s, which is again a very good rating. I'm a fan of this horse, and I think she could be potentially one to watch for the Paddy Power Plate.
Should have a chance, yeah. In Ireland, though, I thought she played a few niggly mistakes that can definitely be ironed out for Cheltenham. But she shaped to me a little bit tripless, as in 2.5 might be a bit short and 3 miles might be a bit far. I do think she will probably have a leading chance in a plate though, in a track that she knows and excels in. She's finally coming back to some decent form now, after being a bit in the wilderness a little bit in our festival heroics.
Definitely. So I'm going for Farclas at 10-1 for the Paddy Power Plate. What is your second pick this week?
It's another daft at the Triumph, and the last bid for a big priced shortener. Tax for Max in the Triumph Hurdle at 40-1.
Right, okay.
Bet.
Very good.
It's going to run the weekend, Fairy House, in the same race that Burning Victory won before going to the Triumph. Willie Mullins, I think, will be looking for a decent performance from a late springer of his this weekend, and I think he could be the one. No, not a lot. He's totally out. He's on race over hurdles. Taking a massive chance in that. He's unknown, but there has been a bit of planning behind this. And once his name was kind of mooted out there by the stable, I kind of had a look at it. He doesn't have an entry in the Boodles, so he's either going to be good enough or not. You're either going to get your money back or not. You're going to get a 41 slip that's going to be much shorter. It's a chance of the Triumph, or you'll have your money back. Basically, I think he's got good flat form, and it's not just based in France. He's had a great German run. In Munich. He's kind of mid-table, the Secret Investor, not the Denman Chase winner, the talented Godolphin steer. He was a solid early 100s horse, and Antonio de Vega as well. Form ties, it's quite close to him. To say that it's a race of that nature, Walk Guys get beaten that race in the same race once upon a time. So I mean, it is high class, Grade 1, Group 1, continental flat form. He's been bought by Isaac Sway and Simon Munir. 200,000 euro purchase. And there's an interesting tweet from the Coolmore stable from Coolmore that have this has been planned out since November. Really, he's been trained for it. 102 rated flat horse, and that's a fair mark. It's not an inflated French mark, to be honest. It's probably an accurate reading of his flat ability. He's been schooling since Christmas. He's gone to the Master. He's with the double green colours of Mooney and Suede, who have had SCEAU Royal run wellness. Peace and Co's won it.
Yeah.
The late Lammy Sales, which was a tragedy in the weekend.
I think Top Notch was second as well, wasn't it?
Close in it. Top Notch was second. They do have a clutch of decent chances in this. Tax for Max he's been trained for it. He's totally under the radar. I'm really hoping that he won't be coming this weekend. He's important breeding wise as well, because a lot of the leading Irish stables are now leaning in Maxius as a top up and coming sire. Maxius has got the same sire as Quilixios does.
Yeah,
he's obviously got a leading Triumph chance. So I think it's probably a quietly important day, and hopefully he goes really well. But I think 40-1 on a no bet. You'll get your money back if he's not good enough, because he won't go because he's not entering the Boodles. And if he is good enough, he can see a late kind of burning victory style gamble, and hopefully a burning victory style result.
Yeah, but a very, very good pick. I'm eager to see this horse. Is it Saturday's running?
I think it's Saturday, yeah. I think so.
Brilliant, look forward to that. And that was our Ante Post Picks. That is us for this week's episode. I just want to thank Calum again for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yep, pleasure as always.
Brilliant. We'll just obviously be announced during the week our Cheltenham preview night for Monday the 8th of March, which is going to be live on YouTube at 8 PM. We're going to be joined by Andrew Blair-White, Mark Mackay and Gary Sibbs. We're looking forward to that, aren't we, Callum?
Definitely are, yeah. They're brilliant as well. They do their own videos, and they're certainly well worth following.
Brilliant. Well, we're delighted. We're hoping everybody joins us for that. We're really excited for that. Thanks very much for watching this week's episode, everybody. We'll be back next week with a special look at the handicaps, and we've only 2 weeks to go. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheers.